Hello and welcome, Internet experts. It looks like I am still on a black screen because my camera hasn't synced with my computer. So hang on for technical difficulties and we'll see if this baby will restart here. And there we are. Hi. Happy tornado warnings. At least that's what we've got here in Minnesota. We've got some very intense straight line winds, I guess, coming through. So far as it hasn't seemed too bad. We had some intense thunder and lightning a little while ago, and I hope everyone is safe wherever you are. There were a lot of storms, a lot of tragic loss of seems like whole towns. So I hope wherever you are, you're safe and healthy, and all of your friends are as well. So welcome. That's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about EVs. So welcome. Because I am testing some new camera stuff tonight, like last week, if I'm really dark or really bright, just let me know if there's something funky with the camera. That would be very helpful if you just let me know in the chat. So hello, looks like John and Todd are here. Hello. Looks like Todd's got a little fireman with a boat drink, maybe? That's cool. Good thing to have on a Wednesday night. Why not? Wednesday night happy hours, that's a thing, right? So I just wanted to start out by saying, first of all, welcome. And so Elon is Time's Man of the Year. And some people are very happy about it. Some people are very unhappy about it. Thanks, Jason. So, pretty interesting reactions. In 2021, was he maybe the best choice? Maybe not, but if you look at some of the milestones that they were citing in the article, and if you haven't read the Time article, or you're really steamed about it, I would encourage you to go and read the article, because it is pretty well written, pretty... it captures some of the humor and some of the negatives along with the positives, but it's very fair. There's some criticism in there that I think is a little too harsh. There's a little praise in there that I think is a little over effusive, but all in all, when you look at the year he had, especially with SpaceX, there's some talk about like the value of Tesla growing so much, and that's a good like business thing, but really the impact of that more is that other people are taking EVs more seriously now, and we'll talk a little bit about that more later. Tesla's had steady growth, and obviously they're set to explode next year with Giga Berlin and Giga Texas coming online. So that's been, we've passed the threshold where other companies are starting to embrace EVs. Even Toyota made another statement recently, so that's all good. But I think really more on the SpaceX side is where he's had the biggest, at least in the year, impact. More and more people are getting Starlink. I don't have it yet. I'm signed up, but I'm in a suburb, and I understand why maybe I'm not on the priority list. But more and more people are getting that, and it's gone out in some very rural areas, helped some first responders, saving the government tons of money by reusing boosters, cheaper flights to the space station, cheaper resupply flights, all that kind of stuff. And So just an overall good year for him, and sticking, the SpaceX stuff is great, and I think there's a lot of huge milestones and developments on there. Some of the responses have been a little preposterous. If you've been on Twitter, you've seen him responding to Elizabeth Warren and some other people who were saying, well, he didn't pay any taxes in 2018, and he's like, I'm going to pay like $15 billion this year. But of course, that doesn't fit with narratives, and that kind of stuff just frustrates me when people know better are trying to score political points. That's frustrating when it happens on either side. But this was particularly annoying, especially since he's selling so much stock so he can pay the taxes on it, and almost making it so he's maximizing his tax liability. So, and I was thinking, well, that will surely shut them up. And no, they'll say, well, it's this percentage of how much his net value is, so people will complain into eternity because that's what people do. And there was another interesting response, which I want to get to, but I do want to say one really cool thing was Jim Farley retweeting the Time article. Jim Farley is the CEO of Ford. And he had a nice congratulations, Elon, and had the quote from the article about, the goal of Tesla is to get the rest of the auto industry into EVs. And so he was, saying congratulations, you moved the industry, was the gist of his tweet. I don't have it verbatim, but so I thought that was really cool and classy, and most people in his comments when I saw it were being pretty positive. There were some people like, Ford's not doing enough. They're not doing it fast enough. But it's like, sometimes you just have to take the nice and give positive reinforcement and let them try to execute their plan. They do seem to be, doing their best. But I think they're still scrambling of like, how are we going to meet this demand with the Mach-E as it is, and then obviously with the Lightning, they're seeing this tidal wave that they're going to be under of orders, which is great. But it's just how do they fulfill those, and how does that whole process go? And I know some people have been getting some emails from dealerships and things about that. I don't think it, like some people are saying, oh, this is so stupid. I don't think it's necessarily a negative until we know more. And really, they're still in such a pre-registration. I think they're trying to sort out who's a real reservation and who's a maybe that's just holding on to that place in line. Which kind of makes some sense, but Ford's not going to do things the way Tesla does things, and some of that will be good, and some of that will be bad, and that's there's a good a good case for either way, but it does seem like they're putting their best foot forward and seeing the opportunity that's in front of them, especially with GM faltering, Toyota way behind. They have a really good chance to be, one of the top 3 EV makers, at least in Europe and U.S. Who knows what's going to happen with China? But so those are my thoughts about that. Some of the other responses were, and I'd like to know what you guys feel. If you guys want to add that to the chat, if you think it should have been someone else. A lot of people were posting images of Officer Goodman, who basically saved Congress on January 6th last year. Obviously a very good choice, and other people have been posting some other people who are very good choices in 2021. That's why I'm not. I think it's great Elon got it, but there were a lot of other great choices too. So I don't have a problem with Elon getting it, but if someone else would have got it, I definitely would have been able to respect that as well. I have seen a lot of, there's a lot of typical hate posts that go out when something like this happens. And a big thread that I've seen in quite a few posts is that Elon didn't do anything. He's not an engineer. He basically took stuff that other people did and just, said he would, basically cobbled together a bunch of other people's ideas and made stuff happen, as particularly with the SpaceX stuff. And what struck me as I was reading some of these is that kind of how, Steve Jobs was also vilified. I think we've talked about that on here before, when he was alive, and then when he's dead, everybody's like, oh, now Apple doesn't innovate, and he's, Steve Jobs quotes are in every business person's PowerPoint. I've seen a lot of business PowerPoints, so there's a lot out there. And, when he was still alive, he was kind of a pariah to some of these people. But anyway, so Elon's kind of in that vein, where unfortunately some people won't appreciate what he's doing until he's gone. But also there's this other thing with Steve Jobs and Elon. I would say almost more with Elon, is people say, well, so-and-so designed this part, and, Elon just hodgepodged it into this, or so-and-so was thinking of doing this. And, Boeing and Lockheed have brilliant engineers. There's no doubt about that. And SpaceX had brilliant engineers. But they didn't do the things SpaceX is doing. And I think Elon's more than this, but even if he is the person who says, we're going to put all these great ideas together, or we're going to shoot for this target, and we can use what's available or develop on what's been proposed, somebody had to do that. And Boeing wasn't doing it. Lockheed wasn't doing it. ULA, other launch providers weren't doing these things. Now people are talking about some of these reusability items and things, and that's great. But complaining that someone just took stuff that already existed and put it together, which again I don't think is necessarily a fair argument. But if no one else is going to do that, then you should give credit to the person who is going to do that, because clearly the results are showing, their worth. Okay. So that's kind of my take on that. Was he the perfect choice in 2021? You could argue that. You could argue that any year, probably. Healthcare workers, people doing that kind of thing, could have also been a very good choice. But they gave it to him. It's great. He's done a lot of great accomplishments this year, or a lot of his accomplishments have kind of come to fruition and have really been being proved out this year. So it was a good choice, and I'm content with it. I'm just going to check to the chat and see if I'm way off, because I am not an expert. Yeah, John, that was a long Zoom meeting. We, about an hour before I went live here at 9:30, the Minnesota EV Owners Group did a live Zoom meeting of, and it was, the theme of it was passive homes. So just incredibly energy efficient building materials and everything, and then all the systems in the home. It was fascinating, and I'd love to learn more about that. It's one of those things where you're like, I just want to bulldoze this house and start from scratch and do all that, because this house was built in 1967, and as he's talking, I'm thinking, yeah, that wouldn't work here without major rebuilding, So, looking for ways to, be more efficient in the house we have, and then planning for a time when we can do some major upgrades to be more energy efficient in the home. Because that's all part of, consumption is the other side of recycling, using alternative energies and stuff. So Fascinating. If I can find a link to it on YouTube, I will put it in the chat. I think it was going to go there. If you're interested in that kind of thing, check out Passive Homes. I'm sure there's plenty of stuff online. But really interesting talk, but it was long. It started at 5:30 and went to 8:30. Maybe 6:30. I can't remember, but it was a doozy. But very informative, very good. Uh, 4K, now the beard is showing. No, my laziness is showing. The stream is still in, the camera's 4K, but the stream's still in 1080. So trying to not murder my internet connection, which doesn't like having tons uploaded on it. So the live streams are going to stay 1080. Eventually the videos will all switch to 4K. The one this weekend is going to be 1080 because I'm doing a screen recording in it and some trip planning. So that's coming, but hopefully it's good information for people who are planning road trips for next year. Hey, Tim, welcome. Let's see. Elon earned it. Elon was the only one, as he maybe should have got it early. Yeah, that's Jason. That's kind of what I'm thinking, is that he probably wasn't the right choice in 2021 because he probably should have been in 2019 or something, getting through the Model 3 ramp and showing the demand and really the mass market appeal for EVs. I kind of felt like around that time would have been a better time, but also, a lot of great accomplishments this year. So it's cool that he got it. And if nothing else, it brings up the topic of EVs and Tesla. Just today I was down in rural Minnesota talking with some people I knew, and somebody just out of the blue, because they know I'm a Tesla owner, were saying, "Oh, did you hear Mr. Tesla was Man of the Year, right?" And so we had a little talk about EVs and SpaceX and paying taxes and all that kind of good stuff. But it was a good brief conversation to bring up and tell people who don't follow that kind of stuff some of the cool stuff that his companies are working on. I have not read the book Liftoff yet, Tony. I really want to. There's a couple books on Elon that I'd like to read, but I haven't had a chance to. Right now we are knee deep in the Harry Potter books. I've been reading those aloud to my daughter, which is fun. We just got through book 3, and it's good, but those next few books are very long. So I figure I'm practicing my live talking as I'm reading that so I can do better live streams. So hopefully it's paying off. Hey, Jim, how's 10.6.1 treating you? Still baby steps? We can jump to that. I was going to say, Jim, Iowa Tesla guy, has been doing some testing with 6.1, and he was saying he's maybe seeing some baby steps. I'm kind of in that same boat, but like I said today, I was in southern Minnesota, and other than a couple accelerator presses and some time where it wanted to slow down significantly in the fog, that was nav on autopilot, not FSD, but it behaved really well and did almost the entire drive there and back through the towns and everything pretty perfectly. A couple accelerator inputs. One time it wanted to get into a turn lane when it shouldn't, but on 10.5 it was doing that for me all the time, where not every, but a lot of turn lanes it would be like, oh, new lane, and want to get over it, have to yank it out. And 10.6 has been better for that for me. And I'm almost to the point where this is a big statement, so take it with a grain of salt, but I'm almost to the point where I am with autopilot, where I'm confident's the wrong word. I'm cautiously optimistic about the things it can do well. And I know when I have to be really, on the ball because it's going to do something squirrely, and when I just have to be regular on the ball. And for those of you who've driven with autopilot for a long time on highway stuff, you know when it's going to do fine and when you need to give it a little assistance, or just be a little more mindful, maybe get out of a situation it doesn't seem to be reading right. And so I'm kind of getting to that point a little bit with Beta. We're in town, we're going down, for those of you who know, like McAndrews Avenue in Burnsville, a lot of stoplights, but it's a lot of, it's curves, but basically stoplights, and you're going straight for a long time. And on that, it does really pretty well. Through the intersections with the traffic, it does really well. U-turns, it doesn't want to do. Roundabouts, it still wants to stop in front of. And there are still moments where, it either wants you to take over or you should take over, and I do. But it's definitely getting more comfortable. Or maybe I'm getting more comfortable with it, is a better way to say it. So, baby steps. We'll see what 10.7 brings either this weekend or next week or whenever that ends up happening. Yeah, the not jumping into turn lanes is good, and I've taken it on some other roads where it just didn't want to be in the lane it should be, and for the most part that stuff seems to be cleared up. So, baby steps, we'll get there. Like I said, by this time next year, especially in good weather, I think it's going to be really pretty capable. It has had some instances with the big snow piled up, which is now melted in the rain, where if the snow is kind of piled, if the driving lane is here, and I'm thinking of a particular entrance to a parking lot, and the driving lane is here, but the snow's kind of packed up here, so you kind of have to go around where you normally would. It can see that and then tries to fix it when it gets close. And since you're kind of crossing traffic, I've had to pull it out a couple times there. But that's a weird situation, probably a new situation, so I report it. Hopefully that kind of stuff gets fixed. But we'll see. If you want to see more Minnesota testing, Dan Berkland is still doing his loop around the metro area. Jim's still testing it down in Iowa, so I don't know that I'm going to do a ton of FSD videos. I do want to do some small towns, see how it responds to that, but haven't had a chance yet this week, so we'll see when that comes out. Just going to check up in the chat here. I see it's been moving. Oh, yeah, I could Blinkist it. I haven't tried that. Hey, Roland, how's it going? Hope you guys haven't been too hammered up in North Dakota with storms. Yeah, baby steps. Minor stuff. Jason's got 10.6.1. More testing this weekend. Yeah, Dan noticed some little improvements. I saw he had a new video out today, but I haven't had time to check it yet. Slowing down on unmarked sections of roads is still there and annoying. I've seen that sometimes, but not consistently, and I don't know if that's more in town that it's not happening. I'm not sure, but it handles center turn lanes now. Yeah, it did in 10.5. That's good. Dan says it's more responsive to speed changes. Yeah, I've had just today. I had a weird, like, heavy slowdown. Like I said, in the fog this morning. For those of you who don't live here, it was extremely foggy here, and then as I drove down 169 to southern Minnesota, as I drove down there, it was very foggy. Where first full navigate on autopilot, that's what it's called, started slowing and actually brought up a little tag on the screen saying slowing for weather conditions or poor visibility, which it was. And in most cases, it did it perfectly, where it slowed down about 10 miles an hour. We got through that patch and then it kind of lightened up and then sped right back up. There was one point near Belle Plaine where I did have to take it out because it was still slowing down at like 43 miles an hour, and it was good enough to see. And so I think it just, something about it got spooked a little bit, and so it was really, really slowing down. Which at a certain point, if you slow down too much, you're in danger of being rear-ended by somebody who can't see you. So, there's kind of a balance you need to play there. So I did take it out there, drove for a little bit, put it back in, and it was fine the rest of the way. So, but I'm glad. I would rather have it bring that little notice up and say, we're slowing down for visibility issues, than to just slow down without any reason. But it was cool. It told me what it was doing. It was taking an appropriate action in most cases. So I was pretty happy with that. And like I said, in most cases, it did speed up again. John says, FSD Beta works perfectly in my residential area. Stop 70 feet before my drive. A lot of left jerkiness in the steering wheel. Yeah, there's been some jerkiness when it stops or is trying to find its turn. There's an intersection near my house where it was on 10.5, it would come to a stop and not be able to figure out just a simple coming off of the top of the T, taking a left down, and it was just struggling with that. And then in 10.6.1, it's been pretty good, almost too good, where it's like, this is a residential area. We don't need to be that aggressive, but, hopefully that kind of stuff gets dialed in. On the way to work, I zoned out and realized it went through a four-way stop. And after that, I realized I had no memory of the stop. Oops. That's kind of what I'm talking about. I'm sure if something would have been out of the ordinary, you would have taken over. But yeah, I'm noticing intersections. I'm watching the traffic around me. And unless the car is doing something unusual, I don't really give it any thought. Any extra thought. And you just kind of like, yep, it can do this, and it did it. And you forget about it because it was so uneventful. And like I said, on some of those longer roads in the suburbs and stuff, you just go through a bunch of stoplights and kind of change lanes to get around people turning and things like that. And yeah, you're, 2 towns over and go, hey, that was pretty good. And obviously there are edge cases that need to be fixed. We've kind of talked about some of those. But getting some of those basics right is a good step. Which actually brings me to the next thing. I'll catch up on the rest of the chat here, and then I'll get to that. Because people are laughing at Tesla, if you believe the headlines. If you wanted to go the wrong way on a one-way... Oh, I think it wanted to go the wrong way on a one-way for John. Maybe. FSD, when a vehicle in front of it just blink around, goes like bat out of hell. Car is slow. Goes around it fast. Yeah. When it is confident and it makes a decision, it can be pretty abrupt and just like, all right, we're going and we're going to do it. And sometimes that's great, and sometimes that's a little jarring. So definitely needs to work on some situational awareness, and the don't piss off other drivers on the road factor, by paying more attention to who's coming up behind you fast, or things like that. But again, it's learning. Hopefully, if we continue to see baby steps, we'll get there. So, like I was saying, there's been articles going around about how I think it's Mercedes is laughing at Tesla. They're beating Tesla at autonomy, and obviously we're just talking about FSD's got some stuff to figure out. But Mercedes has been approved to go on certain German highways, level 3, which is the driver doesn't have to pay close attention or hands on the wheel, but does have to be ready to take over with an alert or something. I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong about that, but I believe that's the basic definition of level 3. And so people are like, well, they beat Tesla, they've done it. It's only up to 37 miles an hour, though. And unless you're in a traffic jam, that's not super useful on the highway. And it's fine. It's a good step, good for them. But the article's saying that they're laughing at Tesla. It's like somebody doing 4 plus 4 equals 8. And if you get that right, great. That's good you got it right. Meanwhile, the guy next to him is trying to solve a quadratic equation. And the guy who's doing 4 plus 4 finishes first. But they're solving very different problems and approaching things from a very different mindset of the scope of what they're doing. Now, can the Mercedes system scale from there? Maybe, and that would be great. It would be good, more autonomy that's safe and reliable, save lives. I'm all for it. But for those of you who've had AP1 cars, Autopilot 1 cars from was it Mobileye Systems? I can't quite remember, but my last car, my 2015 Model S, had AP1. We got it in 2018. I've done thousands and tens of thousands of miles on AP1 and really liked it. But it wasn't solving the same problem. But AP1 and Navigate on Autopilot could both do that. Now, Tesla says you have to have your hands on the steering wheel and obey the nags. But the nags in there are for safety. The system could easily do stop-and-go traffic, especially on highways where you're not going in and out, So I don't think it's a bad thing that they have this system. I think it's bad headline writing and bad journalism to compare the scope of two problems. If someone crosses a lake, it's good, it's a feat, but it's not the same as, and doesn't have the same challenges that are posed by crossing an ocean. So it's okay to like applaud them for where they are. They got this approval. It's all good. But the folks that are like, see, they can do anything, and Tesla's a complete hack job, a fraud. It's just kind of preposterous at this point. Maybe they'll blow them out of the water, and like I said, if they save lives, I'm all for it. But there's just no proof of that yet. So some of that was a little disappointing to see over the last week. Enough that I made a bunch of notes about it. Check. Yes, okay. I have a mute button on my microphone right here. Peek behind the scenes. Isn't this exciting? And if I hit it, the only thing is I need to remember to turn it on, which I didn't want, so now I'm kind of paranoid and have to check the levels all the time. End of behind the scenes. The rest is a mystery. Yeah, it was Mobileye. Okay, thank you, Tim. Yep. Semis have camera-based safety system, which feel more advanced than all but Tesla. Yeah. Hey, Aaron, welcome. Yeah, there's other systems out there, and I think there's going to be kind of this kind of juggling of whose system does this, whose system does that, and where, how geofenced is it. So I think that's just going to happen for the next few years, is there's going to be varying levels. Meanwhile, I think Tesla's going to keep making these baby steps and just keep improving. And I think they're going to get there. Will someone beat them? Maybe. But Tesla's got a lot of EVs on the road, a lot of data. If they can process that data quickly and efficiently. So we'll see what happens with Dojo next year. I don't know. No one knows what's going to happen in the future, or there could be some kid working in his garage who's been a Ford fan their whole life and cracks the code, figures it all out, and sells it to Ford, and Ford might jump to the top of the list. Who knows? There's, even disruptors can be disrupted. So we'll see what happens. Speaking of semis, this is a good place to talk about. Some people on Twitter and things have posted seems like a new test semi doing some laps around the track, and a very tight turning circle. And so that's cool. It seems like production is very, very test stage. And the Mega Charger is going in at, I think there's one going in at the Pepsi facility. Excuse me. So that's great. It's good to see those out, and hopefully they can start getting some miles on, production or early production versions, start getting feedback and making any tweaks they need. I can't wait to see those things on the road. But there are other companies doing semis too, and the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, was this week. There's been a lot of government level EV talk this week, and the secretary was with someone from, I believe, the UAW and someone with Volvo, testing out Volvo's new electric truck, and I think there was like maybe a garbage truck there too. And I think Volvo's been working on that for a while, so hopefully they can start producing EV trucks as well. They've got the brand cachet in the semi market. So again, it's one of those things that it doesn't hurt what Tesla's doing that Volvo's doing it too. And more EV trucks, getting those emissions out of the transportation supply chain is fantastic. When we did our road trip this summer, at several of the travel stops we either drove past or stopped to charge at, there were just 100 semis parking because they have to have a certain amount of off time, and it was just like a city of semis, and they're all running their air conditioning, all just idling while these guys are sleeping or whatever, off hours. And just the emissions as they wait is insane. And there are so many of these around the country that if they could not be doing that, or, taking, starting to get some of those off the road is a big step. I know most EV trucks will probably be short haul for the beginning. Sandy went to Nikola and looked at the hydrogen trucks. We'll see where that goes. I didn't watch the whole series. I think I watched the first one and then meant to get back to the rest of them. Sandy Monroe from Monroe Live YouTube channel. He did that with the Nikola trucks. They're hydrogen fuel cell, for those that don't know. And it's not my bag. Maybe there's probably a use case for it. I'm not going to get way into that, but it does seem like since the events of last year and the year before, where the founder was making some pretty untrue statements, it seemed, it does seem like the people working on these trucks now have a chip on their shoulder and are really trying to make this work. So again, hopefully they can. Hopefully it'll work out for some use cases. But, they're behind the eight ball in having to prove a lot for a lot of claims that were made early on. And it's not necessarily these people's fault, but they're saddled with it, coming from that. So we'll see what ends up happening. But fewer emissions on those massive break areas, all those massive truck stops would be fantastic. And so that was great. The Secretary of Transportation's out there. I think they were driving in a Mach-E to get to the event. So there was some EV buzz there. And then at another event, I think the day before, Vice President Harris was plugging in a Chevy Bolt and looked a little unsure of how it went, how it worked. And, people were commenting of like, she doesn't need to stand there and hold it. And, both in the secretaries and the vice president's pieces, there were some cringy moments, but they're doing it. They might not be saying the word Tesla. They might not be showcasing anything Tesla. But they are pushing EVs. And as clumsy as it may seem sometimes, especially a lot of people were giving Vice President Harris a lot of crap about, why is she still holding on to the thing? You don't need to hold it it's not like pumping gas. But I think a lot of those people, if I think back to the first time I plugged my car in, or used a supercharger, or I'm like, do I have it right? Is this right? And we didn't have a bunch of cameras on us and are trying to do like a little spot, a promo spot for EVs. We're just trying to figure it out. When I did that Mach-E video, when I borrowed that, I couldn't even get the charge port open. Now, that was my own stupidity. I fully own that. But even people who are experienced with EVs, when encountering a new car or a new charging system or a new plug type, whatever, are going to be a little goofy. Or it can be. So to me, it kind of came off as a little bit like, I think it was George Bush 1, who went to the grocery store and didn't realize they had barcode scanners, because back when he was shopping for himself, they didn't have those. And, we'd been using them for 5 years by then, and everybody's like, holy cow, this guy's so out of touch. That may have been a little worse than this. Or like the newscasters who didn't know how to say an email address or a web address. And, I can't remember if, I want to say it's Katie Couric, but I don't think it was. It was someone else. But, there's kind of this viral video of them saying, well, how do you say that? Is that the @ symbol, or I'm not sure how you say this or that, or .com. I guess that's what the internet is all about, or just these like now profoundly stupid comments. But a lot of people are where the vice president is, where they may have never plugged in an EV before or don't understand it. So although it's kind of funny, kind of like I said, kind of cringy, I also don't think it's a big deal, because most people don't have a clue still about EVs. So the fact that they're out there promoting it in general is probably a good thing. And some of the things she was saying, like, oh, there's no fumes, there's no glug glug or something like that about the sound. I think she was trying to do like I said, she's plugging in an EV for the first time and trying to do a promo spot at the same time, technically. And when you do things like that, when you do things live, sometimes stuff doesn't come out the way you think it should. And sometimes your hands end up doing weird things. John's pointed out several times that, like, I'm going to fly away because I keep doing this in all my videos. And you just end up doing weird stuff or saying things kind of in a wrong order. And, like, I think she was trying to get out all the benefits of, you don't have the fumes, you don't have the smell, the dirty, gasoline, all that kind of stuff. And it maybe just didn't come out so eloquently. So, politics aside, I think, I think promoting EVs and getting behind it, even if it's not perfect, is still a step in the right direction. So, we'll see if they acknowledge Tesla at some point. But even if they don't, pushing EVs, is good for every EV car maker. So that's that. Why did I unmute so I could drink? That was really weird. You guys don't want to hear that. Speaking of glug, glug, glug. Anyway. I'm just going to catch up in the chat here. Aaron's really excited for semis, dump trucks, and buses getting electrified. Sick of coughing from the diesel. Yeah, we've got, I think the garbage trucks here are natural gas, which is methane, um, which is better, depending on how much is leaking wherever they're refilling and all that stuff. But um, yeah, not having the diesel would be fantastic, especially for school buses. Um, Metro Transit killed their EV unreli- unreliability even before COVID. Yeah, that was weird. It was like I'd love to know the behind the scenes on that because it seemed like they didn't even really give it a chance. They had the photo op, we've got an EV bus, and then screw it, we're not using this thing. And I don't the sense I got is like, yeah, no one remembered to charge it up, so it was unreliable. Maybe there was more to it than that, but that's just the vibe I got is like, yeah, we had to do this promo and make it look like we cared, but we don't care. Um, that's one of those programs that I think I do want to talk to Lakeville about their EV bus they've got there, uh, because I don't know if and city buses are different. I get that, but uh, I don't know if they have like multiple drivers trying it out, and then someone doesn't do something right, or plug it in or whatever, and then it becomes a hassle, or if on programs like this, and I wonder how the different police organizations do this too. It's a good question of do they dedicate a person or a couple people of like this is going to be your pet project, and make sure you charge it, do all the logs, keep track of it, um, or if they're just handing it to whoever's next up on the line, who might not know what they're doing. So yeah, it would be interesting to know more about that, but um, definitely more school buses would be great. Interesting EV buses. We don't have any yet. Where's the big Rivian EV going to UPS or FedEx? Big Rivian EV is going to Amazon because Amazon is a investor in Rivian. So actually, I think more delivery vans are probably going to go out in the next year than trucks or SUVs, which again is good, crappy for customers, but probably good emissions wise overall for how much those get used. I know a couple are running already, and they might just be in like Tesla will be with a semi. It might just be a pilot program right now or a test program. But I know some people have spotted the Rivian Amazon vans out delivering already this year. Oh, Morris is doing electric buses too. That's great. Yeah, people still don't realize they don't take gas. Oh, there's no engine in it? Nothing? Someone asked my wife what brand makes Tesla the other day. I've had that one too. Yeah, who makes Teslas? Tesla. Well, yeah, but who owns them? They own themselves. It's its own company. Um, it's always kind of a one that like is so basic that you would think everybody knows it that it takes you off guard. Like what? Um, but that's kind of like what I said about the vice president, and there's still a huge amount of the population that's completely unfamiliar with these things. Um, and probably large stretches or towns that um, have never even seen one yet, even though I think, for a lot of us, we're looking for them everywhere. I see Model Ys, Model 3s, an S and X, pretty regularly, and other EVs as well. But if you don't know what you're looking for and aren't paying attention, or you're in a small rural town, the likelihood that you're going to see one is a lot smaller. Um, yeah. Can you do a story on the electric school bus you had in one of your videos? Yes, I want to. I haven't had a chance to reach out to them. The bus company that owns it, that does the busing for Lakeville, is the same company that picks up my daughter. And I actually know, I worked with someone who works there in their offices in my last job. So the connection is really easy to make. I've just got to have time to make it and then go shoot the video. That's the trick, is getting my schedule free enough that I can offer them some dates to see if their schedule is open. So a little bit of wrangling has to go on in the background. But I definitely do want to reach out and set something up. Because it was quiet, smooth, fast, not stinky. We got a little ride around, maybe a couple mile ride, and it was really nice. Yeah, Amazon is the big Rivian order. Yep. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm glad people want to see the school bus video. I'd like to do that. Um, and I actually, since we're talking about other videos that are coming, hey John, I just waved my hands crazy again for you. Since we're talking about that, I've had an idea of talking to a friend of mine who does a lot of family road trips. They don't own an EV. But I was thinking of doing a video on road tripping with kids, and then kind of a subset of this of traveling with kids with special needs. Because obviously my daughter's, got some special needs issues, not that make it really difficult to travel, other than we're still doing the diaper thing. But people travel with kids with diapers all the time. It's not that big of a deal. But their son has more seizure issues and some other things. The family I'm thinking of. So it wouldn't necessarily be about EVs, although I would talk about the convenience of having to stop and charge actually becomes a benefit, because you get that runaround time, you get that break out of the car for kids, which is good. So I don't know if that would be interesting enough, or if that's getting too into an oddball topic that doesn't really fit on the channel. I think it would be interesting, but I don't know if anyone would want to watch it. Or maybe they'd want to watch it on a different channel, which I could understand. And I don't even know if they'd be willing. I haven't talked to them about this. This is just an idea in my head. But I think there might be some suggestions we could maybe give as far as road tripping with kids and things. So let me know if you think that, or in the comments afterward, if you think that's something that would be interesting, maybe on another channel, on this channel, whatever. If it's on this channel, I'll definitely lean heavy onto the EV side of it. But just curious for feedback on that, if anyone has any good input there. Let's see. What does everyone think would be a good way to suggest electric busing in my area? There might be some videos of people doing bus programs. If I make one, you can use that. Because Lakeville is not rural by any means, but it's not like downtown Minneapolis either. So, I think if they can do it, a rural town could do it pretty easily. Maybe not the longest of the long routes, but that bus drove from Lakeville into the middle of Wisconsin and back. And they were able to do that. Not the middle of Wisconsin, but across the river a good ways, probably an hour out from Lakeville and back, maybe an hour and 15. But if that bus can do that, then it should be able to do any route in its area, which would mean it can probably do a route in most rural communities. But I think there might be a video or two on electric school buses, but I don't know if it's the kind of video of we just got it and we're excited about it, this is how we think we're going to use it, or we've had this for a year, this is what worked, what didn't, what we learned, are we going to add more, which I think might be more valuable kind of video to show people. I don't know if you would take that to a school board maybe, or community meeting, or town meeting or something. Might be the way. I feel like it just get left with the property being out in this area. Yeah, it's Parker's Prairie, by the way. I'm not sure where that is. But yeah, it's tough. In a lot of the small towns I've been to in the Tesla, I've had, occasionally there's a coal roller or a, snide remark, but most people are just curious because they haven't seen them yet. I wonder if you could get someone from a school board to go and check out one with you somewhere. I think there is a Minnesota company that actually makes electric school buses. I might be wrong on that, but I thought there was something in St. Cloud or somebody that did that. But there's also, I think there's, growing up in a small town, I still kind of have this mindset of, it's not for me. We're not ready for that yet. We're not, that kind of stuff just doesn't come here. This could be my small town hang-ups, but I feel like it's, a little bit, broader than just me. And so there can be an element of, like, if you can show that it works and show another community that's done it and kind of, illustrate some of the economics of, not buying gas, not having to spend so much on brakes, maintenance, oil changes, all that stuff. There is also a lot of good community pride that could be tapped into of, we might be out in the sticks, but, we're also pushing forward. We're doing... we're the first in our area to pilot this new thing, and isn't it cool? And kind of be the show-off small town. So there's that can be tapped into. I know, I have a lot of small town pride for the stuff my town was good at, and then I don't look at the stuff it wasn't so good at. So that might be an angle too of, we're kind of progressing, the future, and you can do it out here, and isn't this cool? So you might just need another person or two in your community to kind of get excited about it and start asking why not. That might be all it takes to get the ball rolling. So I think, I want to say maybe a year ago or so, I think maybe a year ago or so, Zach and Jesse may have done a segment on an electric school bus. And I can't remember if they interviewed people using them or if they just talked about it. but it might be worth checking the Now You Know channel, doing a search on their YouTube channel to see if you can find how they covered it. That might give you some clues too. I'm not sure what electric buses are doing for heat in the wintertime. I think the Minnesota Transit had like a little diesel heater, like a little generator that ran a heater, which was kind of stupid. And I think people were like, well, that's just counterproductive. Now, obviously, that could be way more efficient than a diesel powering the bus all the time. But, I think I remember people complaining about that part of it. I don't know what the other buses do. I would guess resistive heaters, because I don't think placed strategically, because I can't imagine that a heat pump would be able to handle that volume. But I don't know. I'm not an expert. Yeah, I think it is doable. Yeah, it's how to approach people and get them excited. And like I said, I think if you can tap into that small town pride and that small town, we can actually do this here. The excitement of being the first in your area. That is north of Alexandria. Okay. Saw a story about one being tested in Alaska as well. Not sure what they were doing for heat. Sounded like they liked it though. Well, I think that kind of stuff is really helpful. I think we have a great advantage in Minnesota when people say, it can't work here. In Minnesota, we can point to, well, it's working in Norway. When you can point to, well, they've got an electric school bus in Alaska, here's the video on it. That can kind of, tamp some of that stuff down. Definitely when talking with anyone who lives further south, well, if we can do it in Minnesota, you can do it in New Mexico. You can do it in, Jim's doing it in Iowa. You can do it in most states pretty easily. Driving an EV. I'm not 100% sure on the school bus thing, but I do think that's getting pretty doable too. Now, maybe in Nebraska or Oklahoma, where you have one school in the middle of this vast prairie, might not work for everybody there. But again, I don't know how they do their districting. But anyway, that was a long tangent. I hope you can think of a good way to approach it. If I think of something, I will definitely let you know. If I can schedule that that meetup with the folks in Lakeville, I would like to do that sooner than later. We've had a few cold days. I didn't want to do it in the fall if they had just gotten this, and then when I talked to them, say, how's it handling the cold? Well, we don't know yet. Now they should have a pretty good handle on that. Obviously, we haven't had the murderous February days yet, but I think they'll have a pretty good handle on how it's working at this point. So if I do that, I will specifically tailor some questions to hopefully help make it a good resource for you. Because I think a lot of people are in your shoes. And I'd love it if my hometown got EV school buses too. Then they could tell the towns around to kick rocks. Check out what we got. I don't know why I have this chip on my shoulder. There's an ugly side of me coming out tonight. I don't know where it came from. Maybe it's because I was just down there today, and I don't know. Anyway, looking through some of the other stuff in my notes here, and you can now order the belt buckle on Tesla's website if that's something you want to do. It might be sold out already. I think they sold out and then put it up again. I don't know if they sold out of the second run or whatever. Or I think they've got some new merch and some colored wall connector caps. And that stuff is fun. It's cool. On one hand, I love that they're making fun merch and like the whistle and stuff like that. On the other hand, Elon's made a comment a while ago about how if you don't make stuff, there's no stuff. And he's talking about it from a manufacturing standpoint. And, kind of why we need good manufacturing here in the U.S. and, the ability to do that. He's talking broad manufacturing. If we're not making stuff, there's not going to be any stuff. Someone's got to make the cars. Someone's got to do the things. And that's great, but that's also kind of a double-edged sword. And with Elon getting Man of the Year, there's a lot of, been a lot of, like I said, pushback, the subsidies talk, all that kind of stuff that's not really accurate. But, how the batteries, take energy to be made and all this stuff. And the more merch you make, the bigger your carbon footprint. The more merch you ship, the bigger your carbon footprint. And like the colored wall connector caps are very cool, but you're making more plastic. And so I'm kind of in both camps on this, where on one hand, I think that's pretty sweet. I'd like to have that. On the other hand, it's more stuff. And that takes energy to produce, energy to ship. Depending on what the wall connector caps are made out of, can they be recycled, or is it just something decorative that ends up being microplastics in 50 years? Clothing is a little different because obviously we got to wear some clothes. So that stuff doesn't bother me quite as much. And I know like Now has, a bunch of different mechanisms on their site, their EcoWare site, of, how they're carbon offsetting the entire life cycle of the merch and clothes and stuff you buy there. And Tesla might have that kind of thing too. What concerns me about when EV companies do that or green companies do that kind of stuff is that, are they just assuming, well, we're taken care of because all the good we're doing, so it doesn't matter if we make a little extra plastic or make a little extra pollution or whatever, because we're doing so much good, and in the grand scheme of it, it's good. But then also the people who are buying the products are also going, hey, I'm driving an EV. I don't I'm doing better than gas cars. Therefore, if I do a little bit better, and pretty soon everybody along the chain is counting the credit of their EV against all the other stuff they do. I'm not saying Tesla is doing this, but it's a concern I have as more and more green stuff comes out, as more and more merch comes out of... I'm a terrible practitioner of this, but I'm a big believer in it, of only using what you need or only buying what you need. And I realize the hypocrisy of this as I'm talking into a brand new camera, that um, I think we just need to be more mindful of that, and um, it's something, like I'm saying, I struggle with it. My daughter's still in disposable diapers. That on a certain level is a gnawing beast on the back of my mind all the time, of the impact of that. Um, but yet still I haven't taken steps to do something different, and I know there are other options. Um, so I'm not trying to I'm not trying to harp on any particular person, and like I'm saying, I'm by no means a great practitioner of this, but um, as cool as some of this stuff is, there's a part of me that's like, but if that didn't exist, no one would need to make it, and no one would need to recycle it, and or it would never become microplastics. So I don't know, and that's a tough that's a tough sell around Christmas time too. But um, just something that's on my mind, and I thought I'd share it, and how vastly imperfect I am at following my own belief in this. Um, let's see. John's going to Tesla Rogers tomorrow, to the old Hummer dealership, to have his condenser fan replaced, second time. Yeah, he's got a weird clicking noise. Um, apparently it's an ongoing issue with Model Ys. I haven't heard it on mine, thankfully. And they have a lot of loaner Model 3s, so that's good. If the wall connector caps are glass, then shut me up. Everyone's an expert. What do I know? That's great. If they're glass, that's fantastic. That's way easier to recycle. And makes me feel like they're making a much better decision. So I hope that's the case. They just look plastic, so I assumed. But that actually does make me feel a lot better about those, because they are cool. Like you said, they're very cool, and I wouldn't begrudge anyone for getting one, even if they were plastic, because of the cool factor. So, I mean, obviously, still, even if they're glass, they still have to be made, produced, recycled. But if there's, if it isn't recycled, non-recycled glass isn't the end of the world. Unless you step on it. But eventually it will just grind down back into sand. So, yeah. So cut that rant out of the last 10 minutes of the live stream. But yeah, I'm glad to hear that. If they're glass, then that's fantastic. Let's see. Oh, the other thing. I heard Norway has 70% electric cars. There's a 25% tax on gasoline vehicles, forcing the public to buy an electric. Yeah, I think that's how Norway's doing it. One of the ways Norway's doing it. And it's I don't know that will, at least not in the next 10 years. I don't think that's going to fly here. I also, there's a part of it of not overburdening people who can't switch. With the price of EVs the way they are right now, especially like Teslas have gone up significantly this year, that at this point adding gas tax to lower incomes people's burden, I think that's pretty untenable. I don't think that would be although it might be environmentally right, I don't think it would be humanly right. There would have to be, massive. I don't think it would be a very equal tax. I think it would hurt because rich people would just go, fine, I'll buy an EV and get one tomorrow. And then, people who are driving a 63 Buick around, baling it together with chicken wire and, hope, they're not going to be able to go out and get an EV. So until the price of EVs comes down, I think once there is a $25,000 car, if that becomes a thing in the next couple years, then start jacking up the price of gas and move everyone over. I think that would work, but I still think there would be a knee-jerk reaction to American freedom and oil and all that stuff. We have our, all tied together, unfortunately. Aaron's saying the wind has hit western Minnesota, by the way. Charge accordingly. Yeah, when we had some pretty massive lightning here, and I actually unplugged. I'm still at about 30% after driving around today. And I thought, if there's a big storm, I'm just going to be unplugged. I know you don't have to, but I also don't want to fry my wall connector, so I unplugged that. Because I use my mobile adapter, my mobile connector. They came with the car, and I just have a NEMA 1450 plug on the garage wall. So I thought, just in case we get a power surge or something, I don't need a charge right now. If we get a big damaging storm, I have enough charge to get to a supercharger that wouldn't be destroyed or out of power. So I'm just going to wing it or and just deal with whatever we get. So, but yes, if you need to charge and are concerned about trees taking out power lines or, losing power in your house and you need a warm place to be overnight, so you want to do camp mode in an emergency, charge up, even if it's more expensive at this time of day. Although, well, it's almost 11. I don't think it's going to be too expensive at this point. But the other thing I wanted to talk about, we're getting into some weird territory today. The tax on would be tough. Tony is saying, yes, the Tesla wall charger faceplates are glass, according to the Tesla website. Interesting. Okay, great. Well, all good. I feel better about that. And hopefully you guys all got a good chuckle at my expense. The title of this live stream, Everyone's an Expert, is definitely meant in irony. The idea, if you don't know already, the idea is that everyone thinks they're an expert on the internet, but most of us are just doing our best guess. And really, the best expertise comes from a bunch of well-meaning, intelligent people putting their heads together and coming up with the best answer. Like I usually say, hopefully if we all put our heads together, we can get the right answers, and together we're an expert, where individually we may not be, or we might be a complete moron who just happens to have a camera. I don't know anybody like that, though. Anyway. Aaron, we will definitely tell your wife you were right. tell your wife you were right. I think those were Darth Vader's last words, weren't they? Anyway, speaking of nerdy things, I was going to have the live stream start today. My wife did not buy into this. I was like, we'll start it and have the camera turn on you, and you can wear my hoodie and everything, and just say a couple sentences and then go, wait a minute, I don't want to do this. I'm out of here, nerds. And then she'd storm off. And then I'd come in and it would be hilarious. She's like, I don't know that people would think that's funny. I'm like, oh yeah, people would think that's funny. She's like, I don't think people really think things are funny the way you do. I'm like, oh, well, I do. I thought it would have been hilarious. If I can get her to do that, I definitely will. Maybe someday. I'll just ask her every week until she's so annoyed that she just does it to shut me up. Kind of like how I got the Tesla in the first place. How we got the Tesla in the first place. Anyway, and probably a lot of you guys too. Guys and gals, hopefully there are some women watching at some point. The YouTube metrics make it seem like no females watch this channel, which is unfortunate. I do want to change that. Just for, there are a lot of great female EV owners out there, and I want them to feel welcome. And so, if you know anybody who are looking for a long, misinformed web live stream, send them my way. They're welcome here. So anyway, the last thing I wanted to talk about briefly was kind of going back. We talked a little bit this. Roland sent me last week a video where the guy was kind of talking about, Tesla's a fraud. It's all a Ponzi scheme. Just because they've got success doesn't mean they're not a Ponzi scheme. And obviously that's like, talk about not being an expert, but talking like you are. This guy definitely didn't have his facts right. And it's such a common thread that comes through. And this kind of goes back to the Elon winning Man of the Year thing again. With the, he's not right on timelines. He's not, Tesla doesn't, where's the 2020 Roadster, huh? That's still not going to be out till 2023. And I just wonder if people like that, I understand being frustrated and, things not coming on time. Jason had to wait a long time for his Plaid, and has barely had a chance to drive it yet, which I hope your leg's doing better, by the way. Hopefully it is. But I wonder if people who say these things have ever made anything. And I don't mean to dismiss them like, well, if you've never built a car, you don't know anything. That's not what I'm talking about. I used to work in a scenery production shop, and we had very tight deadlines a lot of times. And a lot of you have probably heard about there's kind of a triangle of budget, time, and quality, and you can have two of the three. You can, if you have a small budget, then you're limited on what else you can get. If you want good quality, you're going to need more time. But you got to balance those things out. And as someone who's done a lot of creative pursuits and a lot of building for corporate events and things like that, a lot of video editing for corporate events, with special effects and the whole 9 yards. It's tough to make things, and it's tough to make them on time and perfect. And having spent a good chunk of my life doing that and understanding sometimes things just are out of your control. And you can do your best. You can plan to mitigate as many steps as you can. You can still be driving to the event and have someone crash their car right in front of your truck. And you got to get out and help. And then, there are so many crazy stories of how just the most random stuff can screw you up. An order doesn't go through, and so you end up getting the wrong thing, or a variation on the thing you really needed. Something's trimmed just a little too small or a little too big, and now you've got massive problems that didn't exist 5 minutes ago. And so there are always delays to things, and ideally, Tesla and a lot of other companies would be better at building that stuff into their timelines. But it's just incredibly difficult. And when there's so much supply chain on the back end for a vehicle, I can't fathom, how complex that entire, back end structure must be. So I understand the frustration. But yelling fraud without some pretty damning proof to people who appear to be trying their best, I find really, really hard to take sometimes. Even going back to Nikola and the whole deal with that, I was really pretty. A lot of people were raising a lot of really good concerns about that company and the claims that were being made publicly. But I was always kind of the, well, let's see if they can produce it. Let's see what they unveil. Let's see. Obviously, a lot of stuff came out that showed they weren't anywhere near where, I don't really even want to say his name, but where their old CEO was saying they were. I'm very on I'm willing to give people the benefit of the doubt until it's proven that they aren't really trying to do something. Because there are those delays. We're seeing that with Rivian. We're seeing that with Lucid. We're seeing that with some of their systems that aren't ready yet. Is it frustrating for customers? Yes. Did they make a big deal out of like tank turn for Rivian? Yes. Did Lucid talk about how great their software was going to be? Yes. And both of those things don't seem to quite be there yet. So that kind of stuff is frustrating. But hopefully it's stuff that can be fixed. With all the Elon talk, this was coming up a lot about Tesla, or some with SpaceX, but most people are so oblivious to what's going on with that. There wasn't much talk of that. But there's a lot of talk of that with FSD, is it's not where we were told it was going to be. Again, like, this stuff is really hard to predict. Until I started testing us at FSD, or really trying to do the safety score to get FSD, I didn't realize how many corner cases I encounter every day. in the most mundane drives, the weirdest stuff can happen. And it's got to learn to handle all of that. And, as long as we keep seeing baby steps and improvement, then I'm okay with that. I did a video about why I think FSD is so important and why we need to be testing it, training it, supporting it, all that stuff. If you haven't seen that, go back and check that out. A little window extra into Brian's life. But I think, the idea that it's a fraud just because it isn't perfect is a cynical and foolish way to look at it. Until it's proven otherwise. If someone comes out with, a Hindenburg report of turns out all our cars are full of cotton candy. There's nothing but Skittles inside this clown. Until something like that comes out, the vehicle that's in my driveway is fantastic, and the one I had before that is fantastic. Even at 118,000 miles when we traded it in, it was fantastic. So I don't know. People have expectations of perfection, and nothing in life is perfect. Could things always be better? Yes, obviously. But I think some of that stuff is really misplaced by people who can't fathom how hard it is to make a thing and then to duplicate that thing. Elon goes on and on about it. Everybody knows the soundbite. But it's a lot of this stuff is very difficult, especially with all the global supply chains, all the COVID shutdowns for manufacturers all over the world. So are we going into 2022 where I thought we'd be at the end of 2020 or really halfway through 2020? Yeah. I feel like we lost a year and a half at least of EV adoption, but Ford's taking it seriously. VW, if they don't get rid of Dees, should be taking it seriously. There are a lot of great EV options coming out right now, even though some of them are going to take a while to get to people. The transition is happening, and so I think that's really exciting, and I'm glad that you guys are all excited about it too. I'm going to do one more pass through the chat, and then I'll probably sign off here. Your wife watches the Sunday videos, but not nerdy enough for this, though. Yeah, I know. I should do something to jazz this up a little bit. Hey, I changed the background around so you're not staring into a big blue panel the whole time. That's something. Baby steps. Everything's got to be baby steps. Just like What About Bob? Woman was walking her dog today. FSD showed the dog on the screen. I have not seen an animal on the screen yet. Yeah, COVID-19's not going away, but we're learning to live with it. I think, I'm not going to go too far down that rabbit hole, but there seems to be evidence that we can find a way to live with it and, just bring, coming from the event world, the live event world. And, originally there was a lot of talk of oh, it's just a hoax. And there are some people who still think it's just a hoax and it's no big deal. And it's no, this is a, several billion-dollar industry that had to shut itself down with a lot of people, not willing to do this just for a farce. But some live events are coming back, bigger live events. Different places are handling it better than others, but we are learning to get on with life around it. Hospitals have now had almost 2 years to understand how to treat it and what to do with it when patients come in with it. There will still be variants and things, but I think I would encourage people to get vaccinated if you're not, or get a booster shot if you're not. Not going to get into that debate in this. I'm not of all the things I'm not an expert in, medicine is pretty much number one. So I'm taking the advice of my doctors and the people I trust in the medical field, and you do whatever you think is right. But for me, I would encourage anyone to go ahead and do that. Anyway, even Toyota is now changing their tune on EVs, although they said that 2 years ago and 5 years ago. I think I need to go back and watch their presentation because I didn't watch it this week. I saw that it came out, saw the new renderings, one of which is like rendered into the floor, like the tires and part of the wheel is like sunken into the floor in the rendering. It's okay that they have renderings now. Should they be 5 years ahead or even 10 years ahead with how like advanced they were with the Prius and hybrid technology, with the RAV4 Prime? They should, like GM with the EV1, they should have taken the ball and just run with it and crushed everybody. They could have so easily. Instead, now they're dragging their feet. And so it would be cool to get super excited about Toyota, but until they start actually producing some of these things, it sounds like the new ones are now maybe coming in 2023, which I'm sure they feel is the right time. But by 2023, I mean, even if they launch them at the beginning of the year, the F-150 Lightning is going to be rolling out. Cybertrucks are going to be rolling out. Rivian and Lucid should both be producing at some scale. Tesla's going to be making Model Ys hand over fist with the 2 new Gigafactories coming online shortly. Nissan should be delivering the Ariya by that point. VW's got the ID4. That's ramping up. People are getting that. And that's at a good price point. So Toyota might get lost in a sea of indifference by the time they launch. They will have, there are tons of people who own Priuses. And so there could be people who are like, no, I'm a Toyota person, had my Prius, drove it till it died. We've still got ours, and we're planning on driving it till it dies pretty much. And maybe those people would go to a Toyota full EV next. There could be some market for that for them. But if I'm not mistaken, I think the most traded in car for the Tesla Model 3 is a Prius. So people who wanted that out of Toyota, wanted that advantage that going to hybrid got them in the mid-2000s, were like, well, we're ready for full electric. And they were ready 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whenever Model 3 started rolling out. And so I don't know, by the time they launch, are there going to be any longtime Prius owners still antsy to get into their next Toyota? or have they all moved on to other EVs, other brand EVs? So that'll be really interesting when they launch. Toyota's a huge brand. They'll probably make tons of EVs. They'll probably sell tons of EVs. But people assuming that it's this unstoppable hammer when it happens, I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. It's going to dig into their ICE sales for sure. So, and that's a positive. So it'll all be good. Let's see. I did hear about the shooting at the Fremont factory. Yeah, someone was killed in the parking lot. It sounds like two employees had a disagreement, and one, after the disagreement, left work early, came back, and when the other guy got off his shift, shot him in the parking lot. It's tragic and awful and stupid. But I hate to say I don't think this is news, because obviously it's tragic. Someone was shot and killed. But I would guess over the years that's happened in GM's parking lot. That's happened in Ford's parking lot. Any giant manufacturer with a ton of employees, there's probably been awful things that have happened. Just because it's Tesla doesn't mean people aren't people, and people can't be awful to each other. It's unfortunate. I don't think it affects Tesla one bit. There's no indication that this was a hit put out by Elon or some, bonkers thing like that, or, it just seems like two people had a disagreement and someone did something incredibly stupid. And so it's unfortunate, but it shouldn't happen, but it does, and it's just unfortunate. Aaron's wife is an ICU nurse. Hospitals are overwhelmed. I'm quitting my job in manufacturing of 18 years so she can work more as a traveling nurse. Is that traveling nurse for the sake of going where the need is greater, and helping out in other ICUs that are busier, or is that to make her life easier? I don't know. Either way, I mean that's got to be a rough job. So I definitely feel for you, and I'm sure she's got long, horrible, horrible hours. So hopefully you guys can have that work out. And I'm sorry. I'm sure she's under an enormous strain. And that's got to be tough for the whole family. So I hope it will work out. Hyundai Ioniq 5 looks promising for range and price. Yeah, I saw they released some stuff about pricing and range. I haven't really looked into it. I think they released that on yesterday. It's been a long day. But I haven't really got into the haven't really gotten into the details, and I don't know if they're all set in stone yet. Someone was asking some questions. I thought the response was, well, we don't know yet. But it seems like Hyundai has really good efficiency with the Kona. I know this is a different platform, but hopefully there will be some good learnings and transitions there for the Ioniq 5. I'm not crazy about the styling, but a lot of people are. I'm not crazy about the styling of the Porsche wagon, but a lot of people are. Transport Evolved had a little blurb about it yesterday, and I showed it to my wife. I'm like, what do you think of this car? And she's like, oh, it's super cute. I'm like, okay, I'm the only one who doesn't like that car. And that's okay. That's why there has to be variety. And I feel like I'm the only person who doesn't like the styling of the Ioniq 5 either. But I do think Hyundai has done a great job with their EVs so far, so I expect it to be a great car. I loved the Sonata we had. It was completely unexpected. We kind of got it as a I need something now vehicle, and that was available in our price range. And unfortunately, it got destroyed by a semi-truck that did a jump into our parking lot. Luckily, no one was hurt or killed because it ran off the road, jumped over the boulevard, and into 7 cars. Mine was the last one because they all kind of dominoed and kicked over. And yeah, the car stopped it from hitting the building, which definitely would have maimed or killed people. But the force of it hitting the cars did stop it from going into the building. And we were just so lucky because people in different companies will, after a lunch break or whatever, sit in their car and go through emails on their phone, or if you're going to a meeting, you could be out in the parking lot for a bunch of different reasons, and luckily no one was at the time this happened. And even the driver of the semi, we think he fell asleep and then didn't realize there was construction on the road and kind of woke up maybe after he hit a barrel or something and jerked the wheel and went up the bank. We're not sure. But anyway, the Sonata died a sad death. But I really like that car. So I think Hyundai does a great job. And yeah, I saw the Sonata had a hybrid too after we had already got ours, and I'm like, oh, we could have got that. But like I said, we kind of had to take what was available beforehand for other reasons. So, yeah, I hope Hyundai knocks it out. Yeah, and they should have. Yeah, they should do a great job with the Ioniq 5. Tons of people are going to buy it, I'm sure. I'm sorry I woke Kwame up. I hope she can go back to sleep. How disappointing to wake up to this. I guess you guys are an hour. Well, still, even an hour later. That's tough on bedtime. Or an hour earlier. That's still tough on bedtime. But, yeah, best of luck to your wife. It is a tough job, and definitely, yeah, she should be getting. People should be backing up dump trucks of money to the doors of people who do that work. It is so challenging, and you got to have the stomach for it, which I definitely do not. I am as dainty as they come around injuries, even my own. So, anyway, that was, yeah, John, that was at off of Cliff Road in Burnsville. There's kind of a big hill and a lot of trucks come down. There's a Pepsi distribution warehouse and some other warehouses up the hill from where we were. And it was one of the trucks coming down from there. And I think the cab was empty. I think they had just unloaded. Again, had the cab not been empty, had he had a full load, with all that weight pushing through, they would have blown through all the cars in the lot and definitely come into the building. So it's one of those noises that when I heard it, I knew what it was. I knew there's only one thing that could be. And I knew I had to run out. Like a lot of the other people in the building, like there was screaming and everything. But I just had that moment of, in my office, I didn't have a window out to that area. But I had that moment of, brace yourself, this is going to be horrible. And then, like, I know I have to go out there and try to help. But just had that moment of, like, oh no. And then, ran out with everybody else. But, yeah, you just hear that sound of crunching metal, and the sound, I mean, it was so intense. And I was not near the front of the building either. But anyway, very, very crazy time. Somewhere I could share some pictures of it. That might be another good argument for FSD. I didn't even consider that. But yeah, as trucks have more safety systems, hopefully that kind of thing doesn't happen, because it's a miracle no one was hurt badly or killed when that happened. I will try to find some photos or video from it. I think I've got it on a hard drive somewhere. But anyway, on that crazy note, we went down some strange corridors today. But I do want to thank you all for joining me. If anyone has any last minute things in the chat, I'll try to touch base on them. Otherwise, I just want to say thank you guys so much for joining, for hanging out, and watching the videos. This week I am working on planning a road trip video for our trip in February, where we're going to, actually I did get that ready. I can show a little end of the live stream treat for you. Some of the graphics I'm working on for this. So we are going to go to we're going to go to the East Coast to Cocoa Beach, and we are going to stay there on the blue days, and then the red days will be travel days. And so I'm making a video about how we will do the trip and how I'm planning it with PlugShare, a better route planner, Tesla's website, and working through that. So a lot of screen recordings, some graphics. I'll be on screen a little bit, but you guys get plenty of that. So the road trip, we're planning on being there, like I said, on checking in Tuesday evening, leaving Sunday morning, and then just try to make the road trip days bearable. Joan and I will be driving down, and then Ellie will fly down and meet us, and should be a lot of fun. There's a rocket on Thursday because we're going to go to the Kennedy Space Center and tour that, which will be awesome. And hopefully at that time, somewhere in that window, there will be a rocket launch that we'll be able to see. But we won't know until we're much closer. For something like that. So that's coming up as far as new clips and graphics I'm working on for that. That should, if all goes well, that should be Sunday's video. So thank you all for joining. Have a good night, and I will see you next week. See you Sunday in that video, and next week. And if you haven't started thinking about Christmas yet, I know I still need to get some gifts for people, and it's coming up fast. If anybody wants a patch, Brian Reby Drives Electric patch. Thank you, Roland, for these. Let me know on Twitter or Facebook. On Twitter, it's just Brian_Reby. And if you know me on Facebook, you already know where to find me on Facebook. So let me know, and I can send you one of those as a little Christmas thank you for watching the channel and supporting. So thank you. Have a great night, and I will actually leave at this point. So good night. Bye.